You're listening to 88.3 WLFC Findlay, North Baltimore. I'm your host, Richard Mass, and welcome back to Richard Mass Movie Minute. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest, a behavioral change specialist, certified personal trainer, and registered nurse, Matt Lane. Go and say hello, Matt.
Dude, you rocked that intro. How many times have you
Thank
done that?
you.
That was awesome.
I do it quite a bit. I've been doing radio for 2 years now
Cool.
at the
Cool.
campus. Yeah, I think
Heck yeah.
about 2 years.
That's
So
awesome.
not my first time, but one of my first times doing it from somebody outside of my college. I've interviewed a local band once, and now you, and
Okay.
then everybody else has been like a professor or a student. So this is really
Awesome.
exciting.
Heck yeah. Yeah, you carry it well.
Thank you.
It's awesome. You deliver it well.
That's good. That's good to know. It's always good to get that outside feedback.
Absolutely.
So before we really get into like our discussion here, do you want to kind of talk about uh who you are, like what you
Sure.
do, things like that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, you did a great intro for me, but yeah, I'm a personal trainer, registered nurse, behavioral change specialist, and I got into the world of healthcare about 16 years ago, and although I respect and love healthcare, the more I got into it, the more I realized how much fitness can ultimately keep you out of the need for healthcare at every single turn. So I've been fortunate to be on both sides of fitness and healthcare and see the good and bad of both and how they both can complement one another. And running an online training business, I've learned to melt the world and work with people. And my most recent project was I did a documentary and wrote a book called Get Fit on Fast Food, where I took 1 year to gain a bunch of weight intentionally, 50 pounds, and then at the end of that, I intentionally ate nothing but fast food for 60 days to see if I could lose weight. And it was a little over 30 pounds that I did in that 60 days. And it was very eye-opening. It was very intriguing. And I guess if I had to wrap it up, I would say that I'm a person that is always wanting to ask why and learn rather than just projecting my beliefs on someone. And I guess that's a roundabout way of saying that's how I go about training clients and learning and whatnot. So I guess that's a synopsis of who I am. I'm a bit of an experimenter. And I think that leads to this and how you and I have linked up is a good friend of mine has a YouTube channel, and in 2020 we started watching movies together, and I just could not stand Star Wars, and the video went very viral, and a lot of people did not like me for it, and he started a channel where we did that, we started reacting to movies, and that's ultimately what's led you and I to this. So I think that's a fairly good synopsis, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty good.
Okay,
And
cool.
I think that's also good to mention. We are probably going to break this up into like two separate parts.
Sure.
That way we have our discussion on, as you mentioned, your book and your documentary first, and then do our normal movie section later.
Cool.
That way we get a good grasp of both, kind of understanding. I remember watching that first Star Wars video. I think I watched. I am a fan of Star Wars. I'm
Okay,
not
cool.
gonna lie, but I'm
Cool.
also not an absolute hater of people who don't dislike
Okay.
or don't
Gotcha.
like Star Wars. That is actually maybe something I want to talk about just qu quickly. You get lots of hates in a lot of these videos. So what is that like? Especially, I think recently, maybe one of the more recent ones, Deadpool 3. Maybe
Yeah.
you and Holden both got hate for how you went
Yep.
into that.
Yeah.
How do you take that as maybe more of a learning experience rather than actual just hate comments?
That's a good question. Uh, I think first and foremost, my ignorance of cinema really helps. Like seriously, like going into Star Wars, I just knew it was sci-fi fantasy. My parents are in their 70s. I'm 35. My mom had me when she was 40, so I grew up like an old soul in an old household. So I was very ignorant to pop culture. So I went into it and I was just like, I don't like it, and that's it. I didn't really have any understanding of like if you say that, the world is going to freak out.
Yeah.
And so to this day, if I don't like something, I'm just very blunt and honest about it. I think now, though, I'm more mature as far as cinema. Like,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. Like, beforehand with Star Wars, I was like, it's terrible. I can't stand it. But after watching so many movies now, I guess I can reach and look for different appreciation.
Hmm.
Like, I think now if I were to watch Star Wars, I would be like, man, although I'm not crazy about it, it was a very impressive way that they transitioned from this scene to that scene and how they carried the story. I don't think I really answered the question though, did I?
Um, I think no. It's
So is your question directly related to like how do I deal with like being insulted or just
I
learning from it?
I think how do you handle being insulted, but also taking that maybe not necessarily too hard? Because I think sometimes people just on the internet
Sure. Okay.
wanna hate. There's a lot of people
Yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
just hate to hate.
That makes sense.
So how do you see that and kind of go, I need to block that out, but
Got
also
it.
take maybe what they're saying as a bit of a criticism
Sure,
to
sure.
learn?
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. So I used to believe that I didn't care what people thought.
Hmm.
And I hear a lot of people say that, but if you're standing in the middle of the street naked, it's it's exposing, and not everyone wants to be in that situation. I think that we all care what people think to an extent. Now, having said that, for a for a lot of things, I don't care what people think. I bleached my hair and eyebrows recently, and I really regret the eyebrows, but I don't care what people think.
Sure.
So I think going into it knowing like if a comment I read, I'd be lying if I said every comment never hurt my feelings. But I think that the comments that hurt your feelings are the ones that you secretly maybe believe or maybe out
Mm.
loud believe. So I think that's one thing. Another thing is I have learned that nostalgia plays such a role with people's reaction to movies. So anybody that's insulting me, I'm like, all right, they probably grew up with this. It feels like I'm personally attacking them, which I'm not.
No.
And then I think there's also, I go into reading the comments because I enjoy reading the comments. I go into it knowing like I guess giving empathy. I think about the person that is spewing this venom and is taking the time to insult me personally. Like there's a reason behind it. There's a true reason behind it because they don't know me. Like them saying that I am this person or a bad person, a stupid person, they can't really know that. So I guess I'm able to sort of extend an olive branch and be like, this is coming from somewhere else. And
Mhm.
as corny as that sounds, that's really what I've leaned on in times of getting comments from like, because I had people like death threats,
Yeah,
like
that's wild.
it was crazy. And like, so I think that definitely answers it. But I'd be lying if I said I've never read a comment that hurt my feelings.
Sure.
But it definitely is not going to break who I am.
Yeah. I mean, when I first watched it, like growing up, I watched Star Wars with my grandpa. So that was like a personal
See,
experience. Yeah, you know what I
yeah,
mean? So
absolutely.
it's like completely different. Like I watched it when I was 12 or whatever, you
Sure.
know. So that it's been in my life growing up with it.
Yeah.
And like one of my favorite stories is he went to go see the first Star Wars with my grandma 14 times.
Wow.
Yeah. He
Dang.
loved that movie and then I got instilled with that too. So it's
Wow.
so like that you exactly what you're talking about. Maybe initially you're going into it and like, oh, I just don't like it, so whatever. But
Yeah,
you've grown and you like there are the people's
absolutely.
personal experiences
Yeah.
that tie more into just movies and going into like that nostalgia aspect too.
And it's so weird you just saying that you grew up watching it with them and like hearing the story behind like that makes me actually like Star Wars just a little bit more, you know? So if you don't have any ties to the film, like my parents, they don't like sci-fi at all. So that's
Mm,
all I was ever around.
yeah.
So I think I just came by that naturally, and that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
If you grew up with it, if I grew up with it, I probably would have liked it. Who
Oh
knows?
yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of movies like that where I'll be like, people will love it. Like I've never seen Shawshank Redemption. I don't know if
Okay,
you have,
I
but
love it.
people are like, oh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. But I was like, I've just never watched it, and so like
Yeah,
I'm almost worried that I'm gonna hate it now.
sure, it's built up.
It
Yeah,
builds up, so I'm like, oh, and I feel like for you, maybe there's a part of that too, where it's like Holden or and all the
for
other people in
sure.
the video were like, you're gonna love Star Wars. We're gonna watch it like this,
Absolutely.
and then
Yeah,
you're just
absolutely.
like, ah, okay, whatever.
It's funny you point that out because we've been doing this on and off for around 5 years now. Holden does it as a full-time job, and
Hmm.
I've recently stepped back into the fold to do it as more of a consistent thing. But I have now noticed that yeah, if he hypes something up way too much, there I go into it with this expectation of oh, and if he downplays it, there's a higher chance that I'm going to like it. So you're 100% right. The amount of social media that I consume about the film before going into it affects it, and so I try not to consume too much. So you're exactly right. There's a lot of manipulation that can happen unintentionally, you know?
Yeah. A great example of that is like the Power Ranger movies.
Yeah.
He was like, I don't know if this movie's that good or anything, but then you ended up really enjoying it.
I thought it was great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's really funny because I remember watching those two and I was like, I think this is fine.
Yeah.
But so yeah, that's really interesting that you mentioned that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's been
Um,
interesting.
is there, I promise I'm tying this into somewhere. Is there
No,
like
you're good.
a hate comment that is stuck with you?
A hate comment that is stuck. I think it's probably a layup to say the people give seriously the people giving death. I got a
Yeah,
few
yeah.
emails of people
Oh
giving death
wow.
threats. Yeah, yeah. And like again, I went to what is going on in someone's life that they would take the time to do that. So I can't say that there's one in particular,
Sure.
but I guess I've read many that are personally attacking, like
Hmm.
personally attacking. And I think that those stick out the most because I can just feel that that person is just reaching for something.
Yeah.
You know, that's not a great answer, but I think
No.
overall, you know, the body of them, it's just when they attack personally, it's just really obvious. You know,
Hmm.
I think it's easy to say like, oh, they have things going on in their life because I don't like the movie and they freaked out about it. That's one thing. But when
Yeah.
someone's like, you're stupid and you look bad, like, then I'm like, okay, it's very obvious, you know?
Hmm.
So
Um, so going through that, what has like the feedback been on this documentary and the book? And have you had negative comments like that, or anything?
I'm on it. Like I'm waiting for the negative comments.
Yeah.
Like I want the negative comments to be honest with you, because that sort of tells me like what are the holes? What did I miss?
Hmm.
Because you know perfection is impossible, but I would like to cover as many holes that I could. And when I say cover as many holes as I could, like I kept getting the question when I would the answer I would that I kept getting the answer when I would ask the question, "Hey, can you lose weight eating only fast food?" The answer back was, well, are you working out?
Hmm.
And I was like, well, yeah. So for the last 30 days, I stopped working out. So those are the holes that I'm talking about. But I've had a few people throw out the that's not healthy
Sure.
frame, which I understand what people are saying. But the whole point of this documentary was just to show that you can eat quote unquote bad foods. If it's in the right quantity, you absolutely can lose weight. Now, I'm not supporting or advocating that anybody eat nothing but fast food, but I am very surprised that I did not get more negative comments, and I anticipate them in the future. In the book, I actually made sort of a section of like the common myths and misconceptions and all that, and in the book, I even said, I know that this is going to be one of the most hated pieces of this book. And I just have not. A lot of it has been, you know, this has shifted my way of thinking about nutrition, about food. And I did have one person, I did a podcast a few weeks ago, and someone went on there and said basically that, you know, you need to eat healthy, you shouldn't eat this, and you need to eat organic. And I did say like that is my exact point for making this documentary. You do not have to eat organic food or quote unquote healthy food to lose weight. That's a different topic. That is quality of food instead of quantity of food. And it's not a bad topic. I think it's a good conversation, but that's not the topic that we were talking about. So that was an impactful piece that that person put in the comments.
No, definitely, definitely. Um, so like you mentioned, this is you ate or you gained 50 pounds?
Yeah, 50 pounds intentionally. It took about 10 months to do in the year previously. Yeah,
Yeah. And then in the doc, you mentioned that this was ultimately inspired by a client you have or
correct.
had. Um,
Yep.
what made you decide to make this a video and also a book?
Yeah. So I have a client named Jordan, and he isn't the only one that I've ever thought about this concept around, but he was the straw that broke the camel's back. And I've been a fit person. I've been very blessed to have good genetics. I don't take that for granted. But if you're always fit, how do you really know how overweight people feel?
Hmm.
And I started feeling like an imposter. So having clients that have been obese or just overweight, I was like, just eat broccoli and do bicep curls. And there's such a lack of context when you've never been in those shoes. And to truly have behavior change, I started questioning. I was like, do I know what I'm talking about? Like, I've studied and I have certifications and all that, but do I really know? Like, boots on the ground, do I really know? So I was like, well, let's just see how extreme I could do this in the quote most incorrect way of doing it, and let's see if I can lose weight. Because I understand the science and all that, but I've never done it. And so gaining that weight, I learned so much of, like my clothes did not fit as they did beforehand. Like I could not turn my body to the left and right like I normally would. I would get pains in my side, and my feet hurt when I got up in the morning because of just the more weight on my joints. And so all of these things that I just didn't see coming were just beautiful lessons that I think is ultimately gives me more empathy, even more empathy. So I was like, what do I have to lose? The worst case scenario is I'll have a experiment that I can show these clients and whatnot. Best case scenario, it has major impact.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm glad you talked about like sort of the toll it took on you.
mhm.
Do you, what was maybe the worst part about it? Like, was there a mental aspect to it? Was it the physical, like your feet aching, the less stamina and everything? Or was it that mental trying to get pushed through that?
I think it was mental. I
Mhm.
really do. And I say I think it was mental because I knew how to get out of it. Like I felt trapped. I felt trapped in my own body. And I would consciously think about, like, imagine if you didn't know how to get out of this. This would feel like a prison. This would feel hopeless. This would feel like I don't want to leave the house. I I'm gonna wear clothes that are bigger that cover up what I don't want people to see, the insecurity. So I had this like I had all those feelings. I had insecurity. I would, my arms would come down to cover my stomach. Like I would suck in at times when I never did that before. The belt was tighter. So insecurity and pain. It was just this pain physically and mentally, and I just felt like a prisoner on my own body. That was such an impactful thing that I would have never known had I not done it.
Yeah, there's maybe my favorite moment in the actual doc is when you're sitting in the Sonic drive-through and you're just talking about how you're struggling with this. It's really made you more empathetic
Yeah.
to your clients and
Yeah.
everything. And as somebody personally who has struggled with my weight and how
Okay.
I perceive myself, that like genuinely made me tear up. Like I watched and I was like,
Wow.
oh my goodness,
Wow.
that was like incredible to see. So I
Wow.
just want to say like also like thank you for that.
Wow. Thank you.
But
That gives me goosebumps. That's awesome.
yeah, and then also to that, I think maybe I've seen a video of you watching it or talking about it. Those trainers who gain weight to lose it with their clients.
Yeah,
Did you, look at it in the same way as that?
I think
Kind of
so.
going into it? Yeah.
Yeah. So Holden and I, that guy that has the YouTube channel, we did a few reactions actually on my channel of Fit to Fat to Fit, and that was a TV show on that was a TV show on TLC. I forget where it was from, but
Something like that.
like when I watched those, I could not tell how much of it was like made for TV versus authentic. In my head, I was like, I'm gonna take it at face value, and like these trainers just don't seem like they have a lot of empathy. Again, maybe that was completely scripted, who knows? And absolutely, that without a doubt had an impact on me. There was also a guy in the UK that did this. I forget. I think it was a YouTube video where he did the same concept where he was fit, got fat, and then got fit again. And it's extremely intriguing. It's so out of the ordinary and weird. And like, I knew that it was a good concept when everyone that I talked to about it did a double take because we're
Mhm.
all busy in our own lives. Like you care, but you don't really care about what's
Yeah.
going on with another person. But pretty much every single person did a double take. You're doing what? So I knew that it was a very intriguing concept.
Yeah. Speaking of that, you mentioned how your wife
Yeah.
this was maybe like the one time where she almost didn't 100% back you. Like she looked at you and said, "Are you sure about this?"
Yeah.
How did that maybe make you almost reconsider doing this? Or, you even extended this from 30 days to 60 days.
Yeah.
Was that still in the back of your head thinking about that?
That's an awesome question. There actually was some footage that didn't make it into the documentary. I think honestly, just out of her comfort was really the
Hmm.
big reason. But ultimately, yeah, the original goal was like, let's just do it for 30 days and that's going to be it. But she supported me. She's been incredibly supportive. As soon as I got done with nursing school, I was like, okay, I want to now go do something completely the opposite. So she's been incredibly supportive. But she, this was the only time she's like, you should not do this. And it was the impact on the health. She saw
Hmm.
me for that full year beforehand, gaining the 50 pounds. And I knew what she was saying. I understood, and it came from a place of love. Now, having said that, when I was getting close to the 30 days, I was speaking with my editor because what I would do is I would shoot the footage every single day, and then I would send him the footage, and we would just start editing it from there.
Hmm.
And we were getting close to day 30, and he was like, "You need to push this just a little bit longer. Just let's just see." And I had this immediate pain in my head of like, oh, and I think I might have responded like, I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. And when I had that pain in my head, when I had that response through text to him, I was like, that's the exact reason I should do it because of that pain that I just want to get out of. I like, this is painful. I want to get out of it. So
Yeah.
that was such a big light bulb for me. And yeah, my wife can't complain too much because she did say, look, all right, look, if you buy me this refrigerator I've been wanting, I'll just let it go. I'll let you do it. So she got a fridge out of it.
That's crazy to say because I also wondered about that when I saw it in Holden's
Yeah.
videos. Like that's a different fridge. That's completely. I was like, oh, he must have just got a new fridge.
In the documentary, you can see like we had this one fridge. At one point, we don't have a fridge, and then we have a new fridge. So
Yeah, cool. Because
totally
your
true.
fridge had like those giant eyes and the mouth on it
Yes,
too.
exactly.
And so
Yep.
I was like something that's noticeable, and I was like, oh,
Yep.
that's straight. But all right, yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
really funny. That's really funny.
Yeah.
Um, so we talked about you did the book and the documentary. How did those two
It's a good question.
bounce off of each other?
Yeah.
Influence each other in this process? And why didn't you decide to do both instead of just doing like a YouTube video like you did with your potatoes video?
That's a great question. And now looking back at it, it was extremely difficult to do at the same time. Caveat, it helped because I was
Hmm.
able to, I mean, they were so interlinked, obviously.
Yeah.
So that same client, Jordan, said to me one day, he was like, and he's a busy guy. He has a career, he has family, he has a house, all that. But he was like, can you suggest what I should eat when I go to fast food?
Hmm.
And I was like, that's a great idea. And so I set out to make that. And I was like, you know what are some options that are higher in protein, lower in calories, the foods you would enjoy. And from that, it was like, man, this could be this could be more. Like this could be more. And I started weaving in some of my fitness and mental fitness concepts into it. And then I was like, honestly, the book idea came first. It was like,
Hmm.
let's make this for him. And it was a quick like 5, 7 restaurants. And I was like, hey, these right here, this is what you could shoot for.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this could be so much more. And then that after that, I was like, oh, wait a minute. What if I did it? Like, what if I actually did it and showed him and then had something for him? So it's not just like you get to see, oh, yeah, Matt did it, the trainer did it, but like, here's a tool for you. Like, a lot of that book is menus. Like,
Hmm.
there's over 4,000 pieces of data that I had to collect for the menus for it to, like I wanted to get foods that people were going to enjoy. So it's not like just salads,
Hmm.
but I wanted it to be higher in protein, lower in calories. And so I meant for that book to be a guidebook and a tool. There's actually not a massive amount of reading when you look at it. And that's exactly what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be simple and a guidebook for that person. So that's ultimately how it came about.
Yeah. Would you say that the book was maybe more difficult than the documentary, or was the documentary more difficult because you actually had to live through it?
Honestly, the book was the tougher part. It
Uh,
was the I think the book was the toughest part was because how much do you include and how much do you not include? With shooting the documentary, capturing the pain, I'm going to Sonic and all that. That part I know more. So maybe it was just due to my ignorance of writing a book. It's the first
Hmm.
time I've ever written a book, but
Yeah.
I wanted just to make sure that it was enough of a tool without over just bombarding people, because it's so easy in nutrition to be like, you should eat organic and don't eat too much sodium, and here's the supplements, and then eat for your blood type. Like there's just so much information out there that
Yeah.
I just wanted to be so clear. There's like, track your calories, hit the calorie goal, you're good. Sure,
Hmm.
there's many more things you can be doing, and I advocate for that, but let's just keep it simple. For the people that don't care about the
Yeah.
details, for people just want it simple. That was, how much do you include and how much do you exclude?
Yeah, because especially with there's like such an information overload with
Yes.
the internet, and there's so many people who aren't registered behavioral change specialists or anything,
Yep.
just spewing nonsense, and people believe it. People believe
Correct.
that. So I think having like a sort of a one-stop shop with
Yep.
your book is
Yep.
great. Um, Something I was just thinking about. One of your first times back on Holden's channel after you took that break was in that video where you were helping him with the ceiling in the place he
That's
lived
right.
at.
Yep.
And I remember seeing that, and I'm assuming that was part of when you were doing that,
I was thicker.
larger in that video.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was thinking, oh, maybe he must just be like on a bulk or something.
Yeah.
What maybe was the reaction of people seeing you for the first time since you left, and like even not just the comments, but like people you knew in personal life?
Yeah. Holden said, he's like, dude, you just look like you have more muscle. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I can't breathe walking upstairs. And so I think there's this interesting perception that people have of like like if you know someone that's fit and then they gain weight, like there's almost a, how do you put this? Like this bias that people have, because
Hmm.
I had a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, no one, like yeah, of course you lost weight eating fast food." I was like, you got to be kidding me. You got to." So I think there's this strange bias that people have, which I understand.
Hmm.
They think like, "Oh, his metabolism's just great, my metabolism's bad." I did have some people in my life that treated me a little bit differently, and I think it was totally subconscious. There was just like less eye contact, and I think the perception of like my perception was like, he's less attractive. Like
Mm.
that's, now I could be wrong, but that was my perception of like, he's less attractive. I'm averting my eyes. I'm not looking as much. Again, that maybe I'm wrong, but there was almost less respect.
Wow.
And so I actually talked to my wife about it, and I was like, does that make any sense? And she said, that's so funny you say that, because my wife has gained weight and lost weight, and there was one point where she like didn't wear as much makeup, and she noticed that in her interaction, she's in healthcare as well, in her
Mm.
interactions with people, especially male coworkers, there was less, I don't know, eye contact, communication, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. So it felt like this like less respect thing, which, I mean, people want to look at pretty people, I get that,
Yeah.
but so I just did not see that coming.
No. Um, that's really, really interesting.
I know, right?
I feel like because my weight's fluctuated a lot. I remember the biggest I ever weighed was in like right when COVID. I was like a sophomore in high school,
Okay.
and so I went all the way up to like 240.
Okay.
I'm 6'2", so it doesn't look like
Okay. Got it.
horrendous on me, but
Sure.
I do have like weird proportions, and now I'm back down to like 210.
Okay. Good for
But
you.
thank you, thank you. Honestly, it's because I don't eat well enough.
Okay.
I college student, so I have a lot of times where I
Sure.
just no eating.
Sure.
But there you can definitely there is that. And it was so interesting hearing you say that because I can imagine times in my life where I have been treated better now because
Wow.
I do look better.
Really?
Yes, yeah, I think so interesting. I mean,
Wow.
even just the way, like you mentioned Jenna with her male coworkers, the way women talk to me now is different
Wow.
than how it was before,
Get
you know?
out of here. That's
It,
crazy.
so that is very, very interesting
Huh.
to hear.
Yeah, there's got to
Um,
be something. There's got to be something there. Like that can't just be anecdotal. It's got to be. There's got
no,
to
no,
be
no.
something there. That makes
Well,
sense.
and I mean, we're pushed all the time, like
Absolutely.
models and
Yep.
these. You watch the Marvel movies, the way the Chris Hemsworth looks in those,
Absolutely.
and
Yeah.
something like he is, a godly figure. So
Yeah.
that's how we deem people should be when that's just like
Their
not
worth.
healthy in itself either, like pushing yourself to that
Correct.
brink.
Yep.
Because they talk about how they have to go on water, they don't drink water for
Yeah.
6 days beforehand.
Yep.
Um, so it's interesting that like even being so fit is so unhealthy for you, and not
Oh my
being fit at
gosh.
all is
Yeah.
unhealthy for you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So if you look at like modern bodybuilding, and so like the upper echelon, the top is the IFBB,
Hmm.
the International Federation of Bodybuilding. That's like the Olympia. That's Arnold Schwarzenegger. All that. You know, it is, I would say, the opposite of health. Like they look
Yeah.
incredible because they get low body fat percentages, but the things that go into that, there's so much of an extreme,
Hmm.
so much of an extreme. So, and the extreme of the opposite direction of is morbid obesity. It's just let's meet in the middle, folks, somewhere here in the
Yeah.
middle.
Somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
Um, were you worried about this concept almost coming across as like gimmicky? Like
Absolutely. What a
yeah.
great question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And
Because
I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
no, okay. It's just like because when I not that I was against it. Like when I first saw, it, I was like, that's interesting. But
Sure.
it's got to catch you out. Like get fit on fast food. Like
Yep.
it seems almost too good to be true.
Absolutely.
So like
Yeah.
how were you trying to make sure it didn't come across as gimmicky?
It's so funny you asked that because I haven't had that question. I don't think I've had that question yet on any interviews,
Okay.
but it's a great question. But I was trying to figure out, how YouTube works
Yeah.
is, your title, your thumbnail, and all that is a big deal with how the video is going to do. So you have to play this game. And when it comes to Get Fit on Fast Food, it was a great title. And for a book, it was a great title. I balance so much of what I do, what I say on social media of do I sound like a snake oil salesman or do I sound authentic? It's such a balance. And if I had it my way, the titles would be so boring
Sure.
because I don't want that misleading. There's so much that is out there that is misleading. The issue is that you have to use a catchy title because everyone's attention span is just so, it's a fraction of a second. So I get it. I realized ultimately, and my moral compass was I have to play this game to bring them in, to tell them the truth and give them good information. Once I landed on that, I was like, it's okay. Like the title is not like snake oil. There is truth behind it. So it's a great question. And ultimately, I actually talk about it in the book.
Okay.
I talk about how there's so much information out there, and think about why people are saying what they're saying to you. Is there a price wall behind their words? It's not an automatic, like, this is bad. But I mean, if I'm telling you something and I have a financial incentive, you have to have a little bit of skepticism just automatically.
Yeah.
So great question. And I wanted it to be a boring title.
Yeah.
Fortunately, I have a business coach, and he was like, "No, it's not going to be. Let's get healthy on fast food." So yeah, that's a great question.
What would your title have been?
Something so boring, so like eating a calorie deficit for happiness.
No,
Something so boring.
something just terrible.
Hmm.
Speaking of your social media though, I really enjoy that your memes that you've been putting out, like your
Yeah.
Pikachu one. I think those are great. That in fact you
Thank
make
you.
them yourself and everything. A lot of
Yeah,
fun.
thank you.
Um,
Appreciate that.
what has it been like trying to market this then, if you're trying to not come across as gimmicky and everything?
So I have ADHD, if you could not tell, and I honestly am I need to market more. You need to market it. Like the best product in the world doesn't mean jack if no one
Mhm.
knows about it. I'm so like I'm ready to move on to the next thing.
Sure.
But I think the biggest thing with marketing something like this continuously is one, consistency, but then also doing it in a way that is relatable, fun, enjoyable, rather than just saying like, I have this book, go look at this book. But ultimately marketing it with my friend Holden on his videos, I think has been a great way to go about this. And I mean, I think there's a wide target audience for this, but I think there's also a more narrow target audience. And I was speaking to a lot of people, but I was mainly speaking to people that were overweight, that did not care about fitness, that didn't want to work out. So with all that said, figuring out, who I was going after was huge, 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 huge. And not that it's across the board, but I know that there's some in there that, some nerds happen to be overweight. And so I think that there's something that I was able to tap into with Holden's audience and whatnot. Again, I'm not stereotyping across the board, but that does help. Holden was actually instrumental in telling me, like, you could market this to my audience. There are a lot of nerds that don't care about, the fitness and whatnot. And I was like, that's a really good point. So, knowing the target audience and I think having fun with it, I
Mhm.
think that really matters.
What was it like having Holden helping you with the editing experience? Because I know I think he said
Great
that he
question.
sat and watched it with you
He did.
and kind of gave you some pointers here and there because he makes short films and everything. He does, like you said,
Yes.
he does YouTube full time.
Yep.
So what was like his help in that?
His feedback was awesome. This is my first feature length film, which if you don't know what that means, which I didn't know what that means before I did it, it's basically is it 90 minutes or above.
Mhm.
And he he was talking to me about how speed. So this documentary, when you watch it, it's incredibly fast. It's so fast. I've had a few people actually say it might be a little too fast, but
Mhm.
that's what I wanted. I wanted this documentary to feel like it was in your face. Go, 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 boom, 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 boom. So he was instrumental at helping me with that aspect. And then he really has always been great about just get the shot regardless of how good or bad it might look. Don't shoot for perfection of the shot,
Mhm.
which is funny because I relay that to my clients and in my content about fitness. Like, you don't have to be perfect. Like, actually, perfection is what you should not be. Just
Yeah.
keep working on it. So he delivered those same words for me in a medium that was totally different. And I was like, oh yeah, that makes total sense. So he's always been extremely supportive.
Is that why you also re-released it in like six parts, like that six episode thing?
That's a great question. So like I I've watched my documentary a handful of times.
Mhm.
I don't know when I'll watch it next. Like 90 minutes is a long time. I think it was over 90 minutes, but that's a long time. And so we thought about it. We had a bunch of extra footage. We were like, let's make a 6-part series. We're going to take out some of the things, and it's a little bit less than the feature length film, but almost a little bit of reimagining or just more footage. So I wanted it to be bite sized.
Mhm.
Like, it's much more palatable to do a 15 to 20 minute YouTube video than over an hour and a half in one
Yeah.
sitting. So having both options was ultimately it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Um, you also mentioned like how you targeted this towards people who are maybe not so focused on their health. And even just in our conversation right now, when you said, great job about getting down to 210.
Heck yeah.
I mean, for me, like that's not even the lowest I've been. So like I got in sophomore year of college, I was down to 196.
Okay.
And so for me, like you saying good job, well, it's still in the back of my mind. I'm like, but I'm not where I could be.
Of course.
So how do you hope that this helps people like that, like how I think, in maybe working towards getting to their goal, or just seeing that like even with that extra weight, it's not a big deal. It's not going to hurt you.
What a awesome questions, good sir. So we humans, I've noticed, want what we don't have. And then once we get to where we want what we now have, there's this hedonic treadmill. So you're always on this treadmill of like just this next destination, this next thing, and that could be fitness, happiness, wellness, whatever. But we'll stick to the fitness in that. Once you get to this weight, you're like, I'm gonna be happy.
Yeah.
That's good. And then you get to that weight, and then you look in the mirror and you're like, well, this isn't what I thought it would be. So I need to go lower and lower and lower. So I'll tell you this, that in 16 years of fitness and running a business doing this, there are still times where I'm like, I'm not where I want to be. And to give perspective, I do a photo shoot every single year for my own personal accountability and then marketing and whatnot. But I do it every year as an accountability piece. Can I look better than I did the year before? And so actually last year or the year before, I was the in the quote unquote worst shape of my life. And that was intentional to go the
Mm,
opposite direction and be uncomfortable. But I say all that to say there is so much of a mental game that has to happen to get you to the physical game that you want to be at. And if your focus is only on the results, they will be short lived.
mm,
And when I say that, I guess what I mean is there's a lot that has to change between the ears for it to translate to your body. And there's a lot of self judgment. Like, honestly, that is a big piece of what I do as a trainer is talking with people about how to fit fitness into their lifestyle rather than fit in their lifestyle into fitness to get what they want. Because everyone's busy, everyone has a lot going on, and it's very easy to beat yourself down because you're not where you want to be, because it's not faster, and you're not as sexy and all that. So I say all that to say, remember to be good to your head. And if
mm,
you treat yourself how you would treat a loved one, you're going to be just fine.
mm.
If you're beating yourself up between the ears, ask yourself, would you do this to a loved one? Because if you
Yeah.
wouldn't, then you shouldn't do the same to yourself.
Okay, yeah. And well, and then you also talk about how at the end, I think you said the what you usually are is 140, but after this, you think that 160 is like where you kind of want to sit weight wise. Has that fluctuated at all? Have
It's
you
a
gone back down,
great question.
thinking
So
about that?
when I started out gaining the 50 pounds, I was like 160, 165. I got all the way up to got all the way up to like 211,
Mm,
210.6 or something like that. But I got back down by the end of the documentary to 180.
mm,
And I started doing jujitsu close to a year ago. So now that I have a reason to have a little bit more weight on me and I'm not like, do I look sexy in the mirror? Am I as lean as I should be? I actually really appreciate the extra 20-ish pounds. Like
mm,
I feel really good. There's been a mental change there too, because I look in the mirror and I'm like, man, like I don't quote unquote look as good as I did because I'm not as lean.
mm.
There again, I feel better. I perform better. I'm stronger. So I think there's a perspective shift of what do you really want?
Yeah.
Do you want what society says that we should want, or is that the definition of sexy? But what do you feel? What do you
Mm-hmm.
feel? And I noticed it's like, man, I feel good at 180. What a novel idea, you know?
Yeah.
So
It goes back to that thing of like being too fit is just
yeah,
not sustainable.
exactly.
So you found your middle ground
Yeah,
in
and
there.
not to say that I'll never be leaner, but
Yeah.
I took a step back and was like, well, wait a minute, how do I feel? How does my blood work? Like, first and foremost, am I healthy metabolically, blood work and all that? But then
Yeah.
secondly, how do I feel? How do I feel?
Yeah. How would you say that this project affected you creatively? We talked about how like a much of a mental strain it was on you, but did this help you, inspire something creative in you? And even would you do this again?
Yes, without a doubt, I'd do it again. I would love to do it again. I would love to slash it would be miserable to do again.
Yeah.
That's a great question about the creativity. So throughout the year of me gaining the weight, I was not in the headspace to document that.
Mm,
I can I can honestly say that the reason that it was so heavy and so difficult to lift a camera that year was because of this mental game and just overall feelings of bad. So it without a doubt impacted creativity while I was gaining the weight.
mhm.
So I wish I would have had more footage at that time, but I can't regret it. That's how I felt, mental
Yeah.
health, all that. But um yes, without a doubt, now that I'm done with it, now that I've put it out, now that I've had the reaction that I've had, I've thought I have so many ideas. I don't have enough time. It's
Yeah.
opened up the door of like, what if I ate nothing but cake? Because that's something I've said many times. Hey, you can eat nothing but cake and lose weight. I don't suggest it, but and then I've thought there's so many fitness myths out there. Like don't eat seed oils and you should only eat
Sure.
this food and don't eat fruits and vegetables. Don't eat fruits and vegetables, and it just drives me nuts. So I've thought about some of those concepts, and it's opened a lot of doors without a doubt, without
Mhm.
question.
So would you do another documentary and book again, or yeah?
So if it was correct,
Okay.
like if the book would serve it ultimately, if it would serve the reader, if it would serve the documentary, I would. I have thought also like in the realm of, would it be a workout type thing where I show, hey, you can actually gain weight working out? Did you know
Mhm.
that? So a product sort of following the documentary, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
without question.
So, it's almost like you don't want to just make a book to sell a book.
Oh
It's not
no,
about the profit. It's the actual experience and what it gives to your
for sure.
fans and people you work with and everything.
Well, and because that's gonna come through.
Yeah.
If I'm just writing something for a cash grab, it's gonna come through,
Yeah.
and I would rather put out something that is more evergreen, that is beneficial, that I'd rather put out less and make less if it's gonna make more impact rather than
Yeah.
the opposite.
Yeah, you don't want to be disingenuous because
No,
especially in health and fitness content, I feel
yeah,
like that is very important to be
absolutely.
genuine.
Yeah,
It's
because if you
exactly, sorry, go ahead.
no, I cut you off. Go ahead.
It's exactly like when I talked about earlier about that moment when you're in the Sonic drive-through or the
Yes,
parking. It's like that, like I felt that. And so
that's.
like
I'm
that's
glad.
exactly what you want.
Yeah, because if the moment that I lose my integrity is the moment that I lose any possibility of anybody ever listening to anything I say ever again. And I'm truly honored that people will take any time to listen or look at what I'm saying. And especially in today's time where attention is just so difficult to attain. Like the reason I do what I do is to help people out of pain, to show them that they have more power than they think they do.
Mhm. Um, what ultimately inspired you to stop working out? Because in the start of the documentary, you talk about how that was the one thing you weren't willing to give up, and then
Yeah.
halfway through, you you ended
That's,
up giving it up,
that's,
and you started doing like yoga and everything
yep.
to still have some sort of
Yeah.
exercise in there, but not your weightlifting and anything. What made you do that?
Another great question. So, because I got the answer so many times, if you haven't seen the documentary, I went on the street and I was had a big sign on my chest and back, and I had a microphone, and I'd put it in their face if they were consenting, and I'd say, "Hey, can you lose weight on fast food?" And they would say, "Well, are you working out?" I was blown away with how many people said, "Well, if you're working out, absolutely." So I wanted
Hmm.
to take that off of the table. I wanted to just completely eliminate that, and it's the same concept. People asking me, how many meals are you eating? Because if you eat
Hmm.
six, you're going to lose weight. Well, no, if you eat one, you're going to lose weight if you fast. So I wanted to take as many variables out as possible. And then I also wanted to show when I stopped working out that, hey, there's other aspects of fitness, wellness that I can work on because a lot of people put a lot of stake into working out, which I understand and it's great. I support it. You should do it. But what about stretching? What about
Yeah.
just working on your sleep? Are you getting enough water? I wanted to show that there's more to work on.
Yeah. What was it like getting those uh feedback from like just pure random people out in the public, like hearing that and taking that to heart? Like what was that
That
process?
was such that was such a fun process because I got to see all walks of life. I got inappropriate comments, stuff that had to be cut out, and it was it was so interesting. I was actually surprised. I had more people than I had anticipated say to a certain extent, well, basically, if you're in calorie deficit, yeah, you'll be fine. I got
Mhm.
more of those than I thought. And then I had some people that said things that I would expect, like, are you eating healthy foods? Are you eating salads? If so, yes. And then I noticed I had people saying, like, it's kind of about calories and then it's kind of about insulin. So, like, there was all these
Mm.
mixed, and that's what I wanted to see. I wanted to
Yeah.
see all of the different facets of you should only eat meat and you should never eat meat and you should never eat bread and you like I wanted to see all that and I think everybody did a good job at just answering truthfully
Hmm.
and it was just so cool to see the wide range because if I ask you the question what is healthy, there's absolutely an objective definition. I have no
Yeah.
problem with the word healthy, but everyone has their own personal definition. So if you just point blank say what is healthy without establishing what is healthy, you're confusing the topic already. So I
Hmm.
wanted to show the confusion.
Yeah. Well, was that kind of outside of your comfort zone too? Because you mentioned how it's like the most YouTubey
It
thing
is.
you did like have done.
Yeah. It
Was so
was it go ahead, I cut you off.
no, I was just gonna yeah, so like was that
It was uncomfortable by way of I honestly like if you felt any nervousness from me, it was I just didn't want to invade people's space. Like you can
Sure.
tell who wants to talk and who doesn't. And after I did it a few times, it's like, okay, I can read more of who wants it and who doesn't.
Hmm.
And no, I don't think that I was ultimately uncomfortable to get the answers. It was more of like, what is like in today's time, like someone walking up to you. Like there was a time when someone rang the doorbell at a house, and we were like, "Who's here? Somebody's here." Now, if somebody rings the doorbell, like, "Who is at the front door? What is this?" So I think I wanted to make sure I was respecting people's privacy. I have this microphone that I'm sticking in your face. I got
Yeah.
this big sign.
Sign, yeah.
So it was just making sure that I was respecting people, I guess. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Um, some another part of the documentary that it kind of takes a small, like a slower moment. You mentioned how fast-paced it was. Another slower moment that I think is really important is you talking about how you don't know if you could have been as supportive as your wife was through this. Um, and so what was it like to have that support system around you, not just from your wife, but maybe from other people? I know you said people actually treated you differently,
Yeah,
so maybe lack of support system too.
absolutely. Yeah. Man, great questions. So
Thank you.
I have told clients in the past that having a supportive group around you, I don't want to say it's a break, but it's definitely a make. So you
Hmm.
can do it on your own for sure, but having people around you that's supportive will absolutely make you. And I just think about all the things that she had to listen to, go through, just my grunting and snoring and all that. Like that's just annoying. But then also like, I I at times was down, depressed. I had some anxiety when I was actually gaining the weight and all that. And I don't know if I could have been that supportive. My blood
Hmm.
work from what my I've been fortunate. My blood work's always been very good. And once I gained the 50 pounds, my blood work was horrible, horrible. And then seeing that, like knowing that metabolically I was very unhealthy, going down that trajectory, it's not a question of if, it was just a question of when I would have some sort of comorbidity, such as, heart attack or a stroke or whatever. I had what was called hyperlipidemia, just some of that blood work being way too high and metabolically unhealthy. It's just very difficult for me to sit back and watch her and be like, hey, you're damaging your health. That's okay. So her saying that that was okay just proved to me so much of like she understood what I was doing was truly for the people watching or the people reading. And when I realized that, I was like, I know she's supportive, but man, you talk about a support level and belief in me. It was just beautiful. It
Hmm.
made me love her even more.
Yeah. I bet your dog loved the food too. All
Oh,
the
that dog, she loved it. It was great. By the
yeah.
way, by the way, don't feed your dog food on camera because they are going to come for you in the comments.
Oh
They
man.
can't eat this food, they can't eat that food. And granted, they could be right. That dog's happy. That dog's fine.
Oh yeah. There's all those videos that are like, oh, this dog's unhealthy because it looks like this, and it's like
Yeah,
every dog's different. It's like, come
exactly.
on. It's
Exactly. Yep.
um maybe going off the support system, you talked about how you're still waiting for sort of negative comments.
Yeah.
So how has it been like connecting to your audience? I mean, like we're here talking, and as a
Yeah.
fan, as somebody who watched, what has it been like to connect to people like me, just who watched this and enjoyed it?
I think like the way I've always looked at healthcare, fitness, business, husband, whatever, I've always found this saying, I don't know if I made it up or if I found it or whatever, but I'm forever a student of whatever I'm studying and whatever I'm learning or whatever. So to get the feedback from people, I think it's one thing for me to be like, this is what I did and this is what I'm trying to prove and whatnot. But to hear the feedback from people to say, this impacted me because I didn't know that this was possible. This impacted me because I thought healthy food was possible. All of my thoughts of what I was like, this is what it's going to prove. I don't know if that's true. It's theory. It's
Mhm.
only theory. So without the feedback, without those people saying it did make a difference because I didn't know this was possible, like it's all pointless if it doesn't impact the people that I'm trying to get to. So all that to say, I have learned so much about the people that are reading and watching and experiencing that another book could be written, another documentary could be done just on the perception,
Mm.
and even some of the negative things, like, I'm sure a comment's going to come where someone says, like, I'm a snake oil salesman, and
Mhm.
I totally get it. I totally get it. I don't blame them. Like, I encourage people to go into it skeptically. So I think learning from them and their reactions has been incredible,
Mhm.
incredible.
It's also just really nice to see like just from like looking at Holden videos and seeing you type in the comments just to the movie
Yeah.
reactions, not even the documentary or anything,
Yeah.
just the movie reactions, how important to you connecting to these fans are. That's
Yeah.
really nice to see as a fan.
That's cool
Uh,
that you've seen that. I'm glad you've seen that. That's
oh
cool.
yeah, I scroll down because I think it's funny. Again, not that I'm not one of the people who likes to send hate towards your way, but reading the comments sometimes is just so funny because it's
It
like they missed the
is.
point. It's
Yeah,
like they missed the
exactly.
point. Like
Yeah,
movies are meant to be enjoyed and watched differently.
absolutely.
So seeing somebody being like, no, you have to watch it like this, especially with the Star Wars where they're like, you watched it in the wrong order. Because
Oh
there's
my gosh.
16,000 different
Yes.
versions of ways to
Yes.
watch it. And it's like, oh God, all right. So who cares?
Exactly. Well, you bring up a good point too, that, you know, the person that's angry at me for not liking their movie is they're upset that I don't have their perception, which, if you think about that, I have to ultimately have lived so much of that person's life and been in their shoes to have their perception. So, yeah, you bring up a great point about that, and it's just cinema, what I've learned, can teach a lot. I used to think movies were stupid. Like,
Hmm.
before Star Wars, he was like let's start watching movie, like, we'll do Star Wars, we'll do that. And I was like, well, this is a waste of time. And now I fast forward and I have learned so much because of movies. It's gotten me to delve into the world of philosophy and whatnot. So movies can be incredibly powerful. Yes.
I actually have a movie recommendation for you for when
By
we
all
start
means.
talking about movies. I'm
By all
excited to hear
means.
that. We are getting close to the top of the hour, so I'm going to ask you one more question
Sure.
before we delve into the movie stuff. Uh, do you have an idea of what your next project is going to be? Like you said, you mentioned you do something like this every year,
Yeah.
kind of set yourself a goal. So do you know what you're going to do?
It's so funny you asked that question. I was asked on the last podcast I was on, and I have so many ideas. And so one that I have is, how do we really feel when we have enough micronutrients? So vitamins, minerals, all that. The amount of food that you eat, the quality of food that you eat, that all impacts everything. Yes, we know that. But are you getting enough vitamins and minerals? And then how do you feel from that? That's one concept I've thought about. And I have so many different variations of, you know, how does this workout feel for this person? And so, with all that said, I have more ideas than I have nailed down, like, all right, this is what I'm doing. I think that I don't want a knee jerk reaction to be like, I'm
Mhm.
just doing this next. I think that I'm waiting to see, why is it that I'm going to do this next one rather than what is it? Because I had such a deep reason in why I was doing that documentary, writing that book. I knew why I was doing it.
Yeah.
And so all these ideas that I've had, they're like, that's cool. That's eye catching. That would get, views and whatnot. But is it going to serve that person? Am I going to have a deep reason why?
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of waiting on that. I'm waiting on that. The smart thing to do would be to have already put another one out, have already written
Sure.
another book to capitalize, but it's got to be the right thing.
Yeah. Waiting for that right time, that purpose.
I could have deleted a bunch of ranting words and just said, I'm waiting on the big purpose.
The
Yeah,
big purpose.
I'm looking for it.
No, absolutely. But that's great. And I just want to say thank you again for just making it in the first place.
Well,
Like it's
wow,
genuinely
thank you.
incredible. I do plan on buying the book. I haven't had a chance yet. My studies have
Thank you.
unfortunately been coming first, but I'm excited to buy it and use it actually in my own life.
No,
Um,
that's fine. Actually, we'll connect after this, and I'll get you a signed copy. No, that's
oh,
all good. Yeah.
I
No,
appreciate that.
absolutely, without
Okay,
question.
well, thank you. That genuinely means so much to me.
Absolutely.
We are going to take a quick break. I'm going to send you
Sure.
over to the music. You're listening to 88.3 WLFC Findlay, North Baltimore. This is Richard Mass Movie Minute, and we'll be right back with our Life Through Film segment. So stay tuned. You're listening to 88.3 WLFC.